All right, my friends, Mitchell, South Dakota, 30 degrees and a 30-mile-an-hour wind gusting up to 50 today. This is a really hard place to build a house, and you definitely want an airtight, well-insulated house. On Building Across America, we've got a really interesting house to show you today. With that being said, from Mitchell, South Dakota, Building Across America, let's get going.
Build Across America, a Build original series, is brought to you by Arkland, Builder's First Source, Huber Engineered Woods, Pella, Truss, and ViewRail.
From Maine to Arizona to the Texas coast or the Florida coast, Washington, D.C., all the way out to the West Coast and Washington State, I've been traveling around and I've met some fantastic builders. But you know, one thing they have in common, no matter what climate they're building in, is they're really concerned about water, air, vapor, and thermal management. And you know, the Huber Zip System sheathing is something that a lot of builders coast to coast are relying on, not just me down here in Texas. You know, the Zip System enclosure is an incredible piece of modern engineering to build a really tight, waterproof, fantastically well-built house that's going to withstand the worst that Mother Nature is going to throw at it. If you're in a high humidity zone, builders trust Zip System for a tighter, drier envelope that holds up over time, just like Jason Harmon's coastal Texas builds, which also, by the way, have to deal with hurricanes, so that solid sheathing makes a huge difference for him. In cold climates, it's all about thermal management and air control, just like Josh's build that we visited in South Dakota. From blazing sun to driving rain, Zip System products hold strong against the elements and help teams find the right combination of roof and wall products to build in consistent indoor comfort and long-term exterior durability. Builders across America trust Zip System enclosure products for a quick, reliable dry-in and the performance that they and their clients can count on for decades to come. Any job site, any season, any climate, Zip System is how America builds. You can visit huberwood.com for more information and to find rebates. All right, y'all, Mitchell, South Dakota. It's really pretty along here, but look at these massive plains. You can see the wind just absolutely whipping through here. It's 30-mile-an-hour winds today with gusts up to 50. And even though it's 30, I believe the wind chill is like 12 degrees today. And this is springtime. Can you imagine what winter would be like? Here we go. Here's our job site. I see a big green box in the distance. As much as I love my Build Show hat, I think this Build Show hat is going to be a little more appropriate if we're going to be filming outside today. All right, let's go see if we can find our builder. And they've got a special guest today as well besides our builder. Okay, y'all, that's his logo, Stange Construction. We're looking for Josh. I must be at the right spot. And there he is, the man himself, Josh.
Hey, Matt.
Good to see you, brother.
Yeah, good to see you.
South Dakota. This is quite the place.
Yeah, nice and windy.
Oh my gosh. This Texas boy actually had to stop at Cabela's and buy an extra jacket because I knew I wasn't going to be warm enough today.
Yep.
So no Build logo on my jacket today.
Yep.
Josh, super excited to see this job.
Yep.
How about we start on the inside so I can get out of the wind
Exactly.
for a few minutes?
I agree with that.
And then we'll do the outside tour.
Yep.
Let's meet you inside, y'all. Oh my gosh, there is so much to see here, Josh.
There is.
There is some crazy stuff that I'm excited to hear about.
Yep.
However, we have a surprise on this video, don't we, Josh?
We do.
We have another Build Show guy that a few viewers will recognize. There he is.
Yep.
Steve Baczek.
What's up, buddy?
Dude, this is exciting.
Welcome.
So Steve designed this house. I knew a little bit ahead of time what I was getting into, but I got to tell you guys, I pull up to the job site and I am super excited to show this house. There's some things going on here that I've never seen before. So let's first tell the story. Josh, what is the story on this house? We're in the Mitchell, South Dakota. This is your town.
Yep.
And you got a client here who's building a really interesting house with an architect that we all know and love.
Yep.
How'd you get this job?
So the client, they started looking into building their house, and they started getting on YouTube, and they were seeing some build videos and stuff. And the client just decided to give Steve a cold call, and he answered. And probably 6 months later, they called me. He's actually my dentist, so he called me and kind of brought the idea to me, and the rest is history.
This is fabulous. And Steve, I drove up to this house and I'm thinking, what is happening here? There's like a house under construction outside of the house. What are we about to see here? Give us the quick overview.
Well, so the first thing, when you stepped out of the car, you felt it, right? 30, 40 mile an hour wind. It's 25 degrees out there and we're in the middle of March.
Springtime in Mitchell.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
The homeowner came to me and said, Steve, I've lived in nothing but crappy houses all my life. Wind blows through them, uncomfortable. I want you to build me the most comfortable forever home. And I immediately went right down to Steve Baczek's perfect wall. So we basically have 2 walls, but the difference is we moved our air barrier to the middle of the wall.
Okay, so what we're seeing on the outside is an exterior wall that will eventually get insulated.
Yes.
And then we'll also have inside insulation. And I suspect we're going to get into this, but you probably tuned the amount of inside versus outside.
Oh, yeah.
And we're also got to talk about all this zip we're seeing here and all these crazy air barriers. There's a lot to see here. This is pretty
European
exciting.
windows, like this has got a lot of glass, but it's some of the best glass in the world.
We got some cool stuff happening. I'll tell you what, I know it's cold out, but how about we go to the back of the house where we got a little bit of a break from the wind, and let's first talk about the exterior. We'll meet you guys on the back side of the house.
Josh, I think before Matt gets here, why don't we'll throw some of this up, because this is our test wall of the insulation. It'd be really good to get some of this up, and then we can kind of illustrate the air barrier or the weather-resistant barrier. So,
There.
but that'll be good to illustrate. We basically have the whole wall section on the outside here.
Yep.
So we can get Matt down here to be able to give us that really good explanation of what's going on here.
There we go. Perfect.
So, yeah. All right. I'll go get Matt. Hey, Matt, we're all here.
All right. Holy cow, Steve. Josh, this house is fascinating. There is some crazy stuff happening. You got to explain this to me, Steve, because the whole skeleton on the outside and the sheathing, it's kind of blowing my mind a little bit.
Yeah. When I shot my video, for a Friday video, I talked about, I said, people understand the framer didn't screw up. We didn't put the sheathing on the wrong side of the wall. It's right where it's supposed to be. But, I'm touting this as one of the best built houses in America. I've been around residential wall sections all of my career, and this, I think, is, and I'm not saying that, I don't want people to say, well, it's only R42. Yeah, I've done R75 walls. I like this wall better from a building science perspective. Has the ability to dry out on both locations, from the outside and the inside. Obviously, it's structurally sound. The air barrier, we've already tested it, 0.18.
What?
Yes.
0.18?
Yeah, go ahead, throw your chest out. You did it. You did it. Yeah. And the thing that I like to tell people is understand, and this isn't an indictment on Josh, but he's never even built like Energy Star. Like he's come out, he's a builder. We took some details. We added a little bit more consciousness to the details, talked about what our goals were, and his execution, impeccable.
Unbelievable. Josh, I can't wait to get to know you better. We're going to get on you in a second. I want to hear your full background. But I want to walk through a couple of details on the outside, because it literally is blowing my mind. You pull up and you see this skeleton and you're like, what's happening? It's under construction, but the sheathing's on already. So if I understand this right, guys, the zip sheathing that's on a 2x4 wall, that's actually nailed to a 2x4 wall, is a structural wall, but it's really on the inside of the house.
Yes.
So that now my air barrier that the zip is acting as is kind of in the 2/3 point on the wall when it comes to insulation. Is that right?
Yeah, it's probably a 60-40 split in favor of the outside, more insulation.
And then the 2x6s, these are also a structural wall.
These are structural wall. They actually carry the roof.
And so what we've kind of got here in some respects is a hybrid version of exterior continuous insulation.
Yeah.
Because if I go back here and show, I've got a gap of how many inches?
Yeah, it's like 1.5 inches or 1.7 inches, something like that.
So I've got a big gap that's going to get a full continuous break of insulation.
Yep.
Plus I've got this 5.5-inch deep cavity. And this is kind of interesting. Your Arlington inbox really shows this story too, right? Because this is on the outside of the house. It's in front of my air barrier, so I'm not worried about penetrating my air barrier. And Josh did a great job of where that one wire penetrates. He's got good liquid flash on there, so there's no air leaking through there at all. And then let's walk over and show the mock-up, because I think this kind of tells the story. Thanks for mocking this up for me, guys. This helps me visualize it. Walk me through, Josh, what you did here.
So what we did here is we put up our netting and we blew the American rock wool, blown insulation into the wall.
Okay.
This is my first time using it, so we had to, kind of just do some modifications of
Sorry to destroy your
quantity and
mock-up. I
stuff.
wanted to
Nope,
see it.
no problem.
So this is loose fill mineral wool insulation.
Mineral wool
that
insulation,
you
yep.
kind of dense packed in there.
Yep.
And you have a machine to do that?
Yep, I ended up buying a machine so I could do it. So
Josh don't trust anybody.
I
It's
like
like,
this guy.
oh, yeah, insulator. I'm not sure about it. I'm just going to buy a machine. I'll do all the insulation
Yep.
too. Did you mention that he framed the house himself?
No, I
Like
have not
everything
heard
you're
this.
seeing here, he did himself.
Yep.
Like with your crew?
with me,
You're looking at the
yeah.
crew.
Crew is you.
the one-man crew.
I am super impressed.
Thanks.
Okay, so back to the insulation. You bought a machine.
Yep.
You dense pack this. And this is nothing special. This is just standard.
Pro Web, or I can't remember what exactly it's called, but
all it's doing is really just holding the insulation on.
Yep.
And then you guys stapled this on for me to kind of show me what's happening here, Josh.
Yep. So this is the SIGA Myvest 700 SOB, and what this is going to be is our WRB for the exterior before the rain screen goes on.
So this doesn't matter that it's not airtight, right?
No.
Okay, this is simply
All we're doing is
just
shedding water.
This is simply our raincoat on
Yep.
the outside of that.
Yep.
And understand, I mean, for America, this might be something, wow, we've never seen that before. That's because it's never been used in America.
Oh, is that right?
This is the first project where, and I double checked with ATN, who's the CEO of SIGA in North America. And he said, yes, this is in fact the very first project Myvest 700 is going to be used in America as a major component to a structure.
Very cool. So this is probably a vapor open but watertight product, right, Steve?
Vapor open, watertight, UV protected.
All right.
So like the sun can shine on it, we're good to go. And it has an
that's really
adhesive lap strip here.
Yeah, so
so
when
the
Josh
next
laps
piece
it.
you go put it on, you peel that off, you put it on and it sticks to it. You don't
Yep.
have to worry about it
Yep. And
flailing in the wind.
it has
one
another
on
one
the
on the
bottom
backside for when they.
when it overlaps.
Okay, gotcha. Wow,
So they're really
that's
bond.
really neat.
Yeah.
Now, why the black UV stable? Are you guys doing something on the outside that's going to have some light shining through it?
No, we're not. We put this up just because this is what this was made for.
Okay.
In Europe, it's made to be the exterior WRB. So as much as I'd love to say, hey, I'm, figured this whole wall out, in Europe, this is, they do walls like this.
Yeah.
And they'll put this on the outside. It's only in America we think that the last layer has to be some armor, to the house,
Right.
when
Yeah,
it
that
really
makes sense.
doesn't.
Fascinating. Now, as I look up the wall, I want to point a couple things out that I was curious about. Josh, like when I look up at that window there that hasn't been cut out yet, I wonder, how does the rock wool not come into that window opening when you're blowing that dense pack in there?
Yep. So after we get the zip sheeting cut out for the opening, we will take a piece of Advantech and we'll put it on the bottom.
As a sill.
as a sill to bridge the gap. The 11-inch gap.
Gotcha.
And so it ties everything together around the window, and then we'll wrap the sides and top with the zip sheeting also.
So Steve's detail that we've seen
Yep.
in the past.
Yep.
So in other words, you've overframed those openings to accommodate for the thickness of the Advantech and the zip on there.
Yep, exactly.
Got
Exactly.
it. That makes sense.
Yep.
And then as I go up and I see, are those rafters or trusses poking out there?
Trusses.
Okay, so when I
Yep.
see those trusses poking out, I bet we'll be able to see this on the inside, but there's probably an air continuity detail. that
Oh
was
yeah,
done on there.
we got something that you probably, I don't know if you've seen it before. I've only done it like 2 or 3 times.
Okay, so I'll tell you what. Let's hold on that for a second. We'll reveal that on the inside. But then also you've got like a 2x bird block on there, 2x10,
Yep.
2x12, that's spanning in between the trusses, and I suspect those are maybe raised heel trusses going on there as
Yep,
well.
they're 12-inch steel truss, and so what we did is I just took a 2x12, and the air chute up there, the pink air chute, is 1.5 inches. So I just marked it at 10.5 inches, and I put a 23-degree or whatever a 512 slope is on the top of the block.
Yep.
And then I just cut one for between every rafter, and that'll kind of help us with racking and kind of like an insulation stop.
Yep.
And then after we put the air chute in, we spray foamed to air seal it to prevent any wind washing of the insulation.
Josh doesn't mess around.
No,
This guy's good.
no. Not only that, but you're asking
He's
about
really
the windows. He's already prepped 6 windows
Is
up
he
there,
really?
so we can go up there and we can
Okay.
talk about
We can see
exactly
it.
what's going to happen there.
I'm super impressed, Josh. You're
Thanks.
killing it, dude. This is a really well-built house. I'll tell you what, I'm cold, and we're not even in the wind.
Yep.
But I did notice on my phone that in the wind chill today, it was actually lower than what I said earlier. The wind chill today is 3 degrees above zero, and that's Fahrenheit for my North American, Canadian friends out there that think in Celsius. That's really friggin' cold in Celsius. I don't know what that is, like minus 100 in the Celsius. How about we go inside? Let's talk about the airtightness detail, and then we're gonna talk about that zip that I'm seeing on the inside.
Yeah. Well, before we head in, what I want to add is you bring up I think probably the best point in the video, right? Because you're traveling across America, you're looking at homes that are being built and designed for specific places in North America. We're standing out here, feels like minus 3 degrees. How do you think this house feels for the next 100 years? It has to stand out here and take this torturous environment.
Right.
So we really need to think about when we're designing houses and building them that the climate matters. And the type of house we put in it matters.
And on that point, I know we're going long-winded here, but I think the forgiveness that I'm seeing here is really next level. I mean, we got a fully ventilated roof, right? So if that roof ever leaks or blows off or has a problem, it can dry, because Josh set it up in a way and you architected it in a way that we got full venting there. Plus, I think this system, if something happened and a tractor hit this and broke through the cladding and the WRB, some water got in there, there's a pathway for that to drain and dry.
Out. It's going to drain and dry. And the homeowner, before we head in, he goes, his hope is that one of his kids lives in this house
100 years from now.
100 years from now.
Yeah, this is fabulous. I mean, this is built to that 500-year perfect wall, Joe Stange. We call it Monopoly framing. This is a version of Monopoly framing. Absolutely fabulous. Let's go inside and get warm. We'll show you a couple details. All right, guys, this is gonna blow some people's minds here, but we're seeing zip system sheathing at the ceiling line. Give us the explanation here, Steve.
So the zip sheathing on the outside is our air barrier. There's no reason where we couldn't transfer that conceptually to the ceiling plane and use it as our air barrier. Josh and I talked, I've done drywall, we've done membranes. When you pencil it out, honestly, the zip is probably very close in price to the other two options. And the beauty is, Josh can do it, while he's in framing mode. He's got his framing gun, so nothing really changes between framing the wall or putting that on the ceiling.
So what does that look like logistically, Josh? You framed this 2x4 wall that got sheathed on the outside, double top plate, but then how do you transition from that wall zip to this ceiling zip here from an air perspective?
Yep, so basically what we did is, framed our 2x4 wall, and then I ripped some 16-inch strips of zip, and just had to hang them over 7 inches on the outside, and tacked everything on, and I sealed right above the zip underneath that 16-inch. So then once once the 2x6 wall got built and once the rafters were up, I was able to come inside and just, take a sheetrock jack, put up my zip, tape everything, and that's the kind of the order of operation on it. So.
Gotcha. Now, Steve, you've done a similar detail with lots of different varieties and versions. I like this one. It really makes sense and good explanation, Josh. So now, once that zip is on, then you drop the trusses on top of that, right? Once that rip was on.
Yep, once the rip was on.
And then once the trusses are in, then you infilled the rest of the zip and taped it all. And then that 2x4 that I'm seeing, that's kind of the last step as a wire chase.
Yeah, wire chase basically. Yep.
Yeah. And by the way, I also noticed it looks like somebody took a dado out of that to make it even easier for the electricians to run their wires, and frankly, to make sure they don't penetrate that air barrier by accident, right?
Yep, that's exactly why I did it, yep.
And how often did you do that dado?
So basically, I did a SketchUp model of the floor plan, and then I just kind of threw some lines in roughly where I thought he would have the puck lights, the recessed lighting laid out, and just kind of gave him something close to them so that he's not like running all over the place with his wires and everything since I was doing it. And then yeah, basically, like getting out into the hallway or into the room for switch legs and everything. So just try to make it easier for everybody.
I need this guy to build my house. He's really good.
Yeah.
He's really good.
But I think Josh is a real testament to teamwork, right?
Yes. Yes,
I mean, we probably talk almost every day, right? Because it's either, hey, I saw this, or hey, do you mind if I do this? This guy's always thinking.
Yep.
And he's always challenging me to say, hey, I'm thinking maybe we should do this. I know you said to do that, but what if we did this? It'd be easier. It makes life for the plumber much easier. And
Fabulous.
it's just I can't commend him enough for the amount of teamwork.
Way to go, Josh.
Thanks.
Now show us this corner of the window. Will you rip this back here? You kind of kept it airtight for me so we wouldn't freeze.
Yep.
But what we're looking at here now is a corner section where you've cut out the zip system sheathing. And then we talked about this briefly downstairs, but walk me through the assembly. What do you got here?
Okay, so we have our, we talked about the Advantech and then the zip on the walls and or the sidewall in the top. So we put all that on there, and as we were putting it on, where the zip meets the 2x4 wall, I put a big fat bead of Tremco acoustical sealant all the way around on that to maintain our air barrier.
Yep.
And so I did that, and then we threw a piece of cedar lap siding.
Okay, so this is actually sloped right here then because of that
we have
cedar.
a slope sill there with the
it.
cedar lap siding, 5.5 inches, and then we did just a standard 1x4.
Yep.
For here for a back dam, and then just put some stretch tape on, and
look how nicely that stretch tape kind of adheres into your back dam on the slope. It's on the face here as well. And now he's brought that air barrier all the way back. And then once you set the windows, what's that final step of continuous air barrier between the window and the zip sheathing?
Yep, so we'll have our window set, and then we have, I can't remember what the name of it is.
Backer rod? Backer rod, and then we'll have a...
Yep, so we have the backer rod we'll put in there, and then we'll have a
some
SIGA.
foam, and then we'll put a SIGA tape, Fentrum
tape in there.
Inside.
Got it.
So
then we'll have a super airtight shell.
Super airtight shell. And they're European windows too. Triple glazed, which is appropriate for the climate.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense in this climate. And then also interesting to note, we've got 2x4 but 24-inch on-center framing on the inside.
Yep.
And I noticed something in this bathroom over here that kind of drew my attention. Why don't we meet over in the bathroom?
Perfect.
All right, guys, we're walking into a bathroom here. And remember, we're in the cold north. And even a Texas builder knows we shouldn't put plumbing on an outside wall. What's happening here, guys? There's got to be a story behind this.
Well, it's an outside wall, but given it's the inside of the outside wall.
Ah, that's right. I've got how many inches of insulation outboard here?
Yeah, we have about 7 inches out there. So we're going to be at roughly R28. So we're going to exceed code just with the exterior wall.
Got it.
And then this is kind of the additional.
Now, Steve, while we're here, this is a good place to explain. We've got 3.5 inches of blown going on the inside, but I've got like 7.5 or 9 inches. What's the total thickness?
Yeah, it's like 7 inches on the outside.
On the outside. Did you think about that ratio of outside to inside at all?
Yeah, I mean,
was there
I want to keep it at least probably like 60-40, but in this case it's 40-60. So it just worked out this way.
Yep.
We actually have a couple next generations of this wall system in planning for some future houses that we'll get you out to.
Killer.
But in this one here, given the climate, I wanted to put as much as we could outside.
Right.
And, because it is really deceiving. You walk in here and people are like, you're building a 2x4 wall in South Dakota? Oh, no. We have a full 2x6 wall on the outside.
Wall.
Yeah.
It's a 2x10 plus wall, really, in a lot of ways. Yeah. But what's interesting to this for me as a southern builder, where in the south where I am, I don't want any vapor barrier on the inside of the house at all. I don't want anything that's going to slow drying to the inside. But in this climate, your walls get really cold.
Yep.
And normally we'd be worried about our sheathing getting cold. And so we'd want to put something that would slow the vapor drive and also air from the inside to the outside. But in this case, we're not doing anything on the inside, right?
No. So in terms of air barrier, to get nerdy and building science on you, a lot of people, when you walk into a house, say, where's your air barrier, or where's your vapor barrier? And I hate that term. I turn into a rocket ship, go off the rails. And here, you really have to understand, when you're talking about vapor movement, it's not a barrier system. You can look at vapor as a liability, which most people look at, or the way we look at it, as an asset. How do I get my wall to dry?
Right.
If I put more insulation out there and I keep this surface nice and warm, I'm never going to get any condensation on here.
That's right.
And the fact that this is the smaller wall means I'm getting a lot of energy to this interface to keep it relatively warm.
That's right.
And it just so happens that I have R28-ish on the other side to help keep that warm.
Yeah, so you're never going to have a dew point in this wall. That means that you're going to have condensation on the backside, which means we're not worried about doing anything to slow that vapor from coming through this wall. It also means, because we've got that zip on the outside, you've got such a good air barrier on this house. And speaking of air barrier, I heard you had a famous blower door guy on site doing that test yesterday. Let's go see if we can find our famous blower door guy. Steve, look who I got.
I know.
Celebrity guest.
He drove 7 hours to come and hang out with us.
You guys don't know him, Randy Williams, the editor of Green Building Advisor online. Randy's been a longtime friend. He actually spoke at Build Show Live. And Randy, you came out on Steve's request to do a blower door here, didn't you?
I did.
Talk to us about how it went.
Well, it's got the best score I've ever tested. This is the best house I've done. So 0.18, which is really impressive.
0.18.
Crazy.
We were teasing Josh, the builder, that his new nickname is Mr. 0.18. I like it. That's pretty impressive. What does that translate to leakage-wise, Steve? What does that look like?
So we did the math yesterday. If you took the total surface area of this, it comes out to about 450 sheets of plywood. Okay, so imagine a sea of 450 sheets of plywood in front of you.
Right?
That's the floor, the walls, and the ceiling. It is the total containment of the of the conditioned space. But 450 sheets, and we're talking a hole that's about 2 inches square,
A 2-inch cumulative hole
across the 450 sheets.
I'd say Josh nailed this house.
Josh, he's got reason to have a puffy chest.
For sure. Now, Randy, you live in the snowy north, Minnesota. What does that mean for this homeowner who's going to live in this pretty windy, pretty cold climate to have that airtight of a house?
Well, we can feel that today. I mean, we got 50-mile-an-hour gusts going on outside. We can't feel that inside here. It's just so well. It's not comfortable in here. We don't have any heat.
You can still see my breath.
Yeah, but
there's no wind.
It's a lot worse outside. So just blocking that wind. Of course, moisture. We're not moving moisture through the house, summer or winter. So it's just it's going to be a very comfortable house.
Translate that to the rest of the world, though, Randy. Like, builders across America are still figuring out what it's like to even do a first blower door score. And it's been the code for a long time, but it hasn't been enforced. Give us some idea of what's a good score. What should people be going for, in your opinion?
Well, if you can get 3, if you can get the code minimum, you're doing a great job. Like you said, there's a lot of people that struggle with that. 1 is my goal. I think that's starting for Steve. And I think for us that have done this for a little bit, it's not that hard to get there. I mean, this was Josh's first project trying to do something like this, and he nailed it. It's not hard.
He got crazy low. And to be honest, my house is 3 times leakier. I blew right around passive house at my house, around 0.6 or so. And I think if you can get below 1, you're doing really, really well. Do you agree with that, Steve?
Yeah, no, definitely. And the thing that I want to add, because I'm the one that interacts with the client the most when we're designing the houses, to tell builders across America that, you're obviously shooting the video for, there's clients out there that want this stuff. Clients don't really know what they want. Right? I mean, Steve Jobs said, it's our job to tell people what they
100%.
want.
Yes.
Right? And we're in the industry, we're the professionals. And I know some builders are like, oh, yeah, you guys are crazy. Oh, I would never do that. Oh, you don't need to build them that tight. But you do, and there's clients, and there is a service that we can provide and get paid for. Imagine that.
That's right.
Right? By delivering very well-built houses.
I agree. I totally agree. I really like this whole idea of everybody shooting for a 1. You get a 1.2, okay, you did great. You got a 0.8, even better. 0.18, you absolutely killed it. Now, Randy, you've been doing blower doors a long time. I want you to give us some advice, like builders who haven't done a lot of blower doors. Should they always hire somebody? Is there a way that they could actually own a door and get trained themselves? What do you think about that?
Yeah, if you have the means to pick up a blower door, I mean, the cost of the blower door is part of it. The training is the other part.
Yep.
You're going to probably spend close to the same amount of money as the blower door to take the training to really get good at it.
And how much are we talking? Is this 20 grand to own a door?
About half that.
Okay,
That's
about
what the
10.
training. So it's 5 or less than 5 for a blower door, and then the training.
So it's about a $10,000 investment.
Yeah. If you're in your market and there's nobody else in the market doing it, you've got another source of income. I mean,
Yeah.
it could become another business.
That's right.
for you.
Yeah.
So
And what's the best source of training for that? Is it Building Performance Institute? Who do you like on training for that?
I do. The Building Performance Institute is the one that I took my original training with. I am now an educator for them, so I'm
Awesome.
actually teaching that.
Love it.
It's the best ones are a 1-week course.
Okay.
That are really going to get into a deep dive of what can happen, what problems are we seeing in houses. Atmospherically vented appliances, stuff like that, where you're backdrafting, you're learning all that stuff to go with it. So it's a really good course to take.
Good stuff.
Yeah.
Randy, really appreciate your time. Randy's the editor of Green Building Advisor Online. That's an offshoot or a sister company with Fine Home Building. Both those organizations have really supported our education and knowledge over the years. So thank you for all you do for the industry, Randy.
Thanks for being
Really kind of you guys. I'll put a link for that in the description below, but really appreciate you coming out. Steve, next I want to transition to talk about a couple basement details.
Yeah.
How about we meet y'all in the basement? All right, guys, I suspect we have some cool details to see in the basement here as well.
Hey, Matt, you went too far.
What did I miss? Oh.
Basement in a basement.
Oh, I like this. I suspect we might have a safe room or something going on here. What do we got?
Yeah, this is a sneak by you. So the homeowners wanted a safe room, shelter, gun room, all the above. So we actually took advantage of, this is a corner in the foundation, and then we poured 2 more walls to give this concrete enclosure, and it has a concrete lid.
Wow. So tornadoes are probably a thing here, aren't they?
Yep.
You got a lot of big open flat ground here in South
Yep,
Dakota.
we do.
So this is a safe room. Of course, this could also double as a safe too, probably, right?
Absolutely.
And where's our door from?
Yeah, speaking of the door
Pretty
safe,
beefy.
yeah, it's a combination code, and it's got all these throws that are probably about 8 inches on center, 3/4 inch.
That's legit. And it looks like you got a handle inside too,
Yep.
so you can't lock yourself in by
Correct.
accident.
Yep.
That's really cool. And then let's talk insulation strategy. Like as I look up here at this end of your the band joist area, right, where the floor trusses end, and then there's that continuous sheathing. That's the band joist area.
Yeah.
Steve, it looks like we're only bearing a couple inches onto the foundation, but isn't this an 8-inch thick wall?
It's actually a 10-inch thick wall, but remember, we have a 2x6 wall on the outside, 2x4 wall on the inside. So the 2x4 wall is sitting on the floor trusses. The 2x6 bypass it, so we get that true R28 as a band joist insulation.
So almost like a brick lug on the outside that's dropped, and that 2x6 wall is on that brick lug.
Yeah.
So that now when we're insulating outboard of that, you're insulating past that double bottom plate.
Yeah, this is all will be fully insulated here, but it'll be insulated on the outside of our air barrier.
That's pretty neat. And Josh, you've got some insulation going on already in the basement. Let's actually walk this way so we can talk about it. It looks like you've got a little bit of a hybrid approach to insulation down here in the basement, where I'm seeing some spray foam, but I'm also seeing some batt insulation as well.
Absolutely.
Can you kind of explain your methodology here?
Yep. So anywhere there's concrete, we are doing the closed cell spray foam, and we have our 2x4 stud walls, gapped, roughly 2 inches off the concrete, so we can get a continuous behind it.
So almost like we did outside, same idea. So we can transition with that full insulation back behind there.
To keep the backside of the studs kind of open more, so they aren't completely encapsulated in the closed cell to make sure they can dry if they ever do have any moisture get to them.
Smart.
So that's what we did there, and then up into the band joist, we'll end up doing roughly 4 inches of closed cell up throughout that, and it'll kind of wrap the corner over the double sill plate.
So really, your blower door is only going to get better.
It should get a little bit better. Yep.
Yeah, because you've got a kind of a double seal. But what I like about your blower door score now is you're not relying on any of that insulation really for air tightness. You really just did it based on mechanical things, right?
Yep,
Tape
correct.
and maybe some sealant in a few places. And then later that spray foam is only going to add a bonus, and the drywall only add a bonus on that.
Yeah, and the nice thing too, like we can't see it here, but if you're upstairs, you'll see the electrician, you know, we always talk about one wire, one hole. We have a bunch of holes up there, and I was walking by, I was thinking about it this morning, you know, he's putting like 4 or 5 wires down, but we don't care because that 2x4 wall is inside our air barrier.
Right.
So we don't have to be that concerned about it anymore.
That's really smart. Now, as we walk down into the basement, we're walking into the mechanical space. I'm already seeing some rigid ductwork, which I really like. He's got some rigid metal going on down here. I'm also seeing some big shop vac tubes. I know what these are. What do we got going on here, Steve?
That is our Comfo tube. Yes, we're putting a Zehnder in. So when people talk about buildings need to breathe, we agree. We just don't agree with what people are thinking how they should breathe. In our cases, they should breathe via an ERV.
So what's the system and who's going to install it here, Josh?
So it's the Zehnder.
Comfo Q, probably?
Yeah, I think that's what it is. And I will actually be the one installing all of the Zehnder stuff. So
and
strangely enough, right?
And you've been doing that for 10 or 20 years now, right?
So I've done it for negative right now. So
this is your first one?
This will be my first one, yep. And we actually have one in both mechanical rooms.
Okay.
You know, since the house is kind of, a little bit stretched out.
Yeah.
Easier just to do one in each end. Yep. So
go check out our other videos about that. We're big fans of the Zehnder system. And the thing that I like about it probably most is that the ducting system is separate from the HVAC system.
Yep.
And I like that Josh is not afraid of it, because frankly, where I first saw it years ago in Vancouver, it was a kind of a standard feature. It was nothing but builders installing it.
Yeah.
No HVAC guys, always builders who are like, oh yeah, my crew will do that install. So Josh, I'm not concerned about you doing it at all. You're gonna figure it out. And one of the things I really like about Zehnder is they're gonna send someone out to commission it at the end, because all of those Comfo tube pipes are home runs.
Yep.
So it's kind of like your electrician who runs a wire continuously from the panel to the outlet. The same is going to happen on those tubes. So you're going to be in great shape, brother.
Awesome.
Let's transition to one of the better thought out mechanical rooms I've ever seen, and not small either, Steve.
No. We have 2 of them, one on each end of the house.
So let's start first off with these walls that are up already. What do you got going on here, Josh?
Yep. So with are you talking the Advantech?
Yep.
So basically, I always sheath my mechanical rooms with like a 3/4 inch plywood or whatever. And I had a conversation with the homeowner, with the client, and I told him, I said I'd like to use Advantech just because it's nice and smooth, the sand is smooth and everything already. All I have to do is hit it with a coat of oil primer to cover up the print that's already on there, and then we have the tongue and groove. So we don't have to worry about any deflection and stuff between studs, and they can mount stuff wherever they want then. And they're probably going to use this room, since it's a nice sized mechanical room, they're probably going to use it for a fair bit of storage. So we'll be able to use it for
shelving.
I love the forethought of putting this up, painting it gray, and then bringing the trades in.
Yep.
It's always a massive hassle to come into a room later and try to do, let's say, drywall after the fact, and you're mudding and you're taping and it really stinks. To put all this up, paint it battleship gray, as I like to say in my jobs, ahead of time, you're good to go.
Yep.
Really smart.
The other advantage, Matt, is he's going to come in and he's going to blow Rockwell in the back.
Yep.
So now you have a very stable restraint system to the blown Rockwell.
Yeah. Now, Steve, most of the other walls were typical framed 2x walls.
Yep.
I'm seeing something that's a little different on this wall. What do you got happening?
Yeah, we got
here?
the X bracket. This is InSoFast's X bracket. Ed is a great guy at InSoFast. We've done a bunch of stuff, right? He's the inventor. And, he said he's from the Mitchell area.
Yep. Oh, is he really?
Yeah, he's from here.
gosh,
so he's like,
crazy.
hey, if I send a bunch of these over, do you think maybe you can just, put them up on the wall, test them out, try them out? And so we said, yeah, we gave him this wall. We gave a wall on the outside where, we tested them out. They work really good. I mean, they're sturdy as hell.
So this is like almost kind of like a 3D printed bracket.
Yeah.
They call it the X bracket. It's more triangle shaped than X, really. You attached it to the concrete how, Josh?
So we took, Ed had an adhesive that he wanted me to use, but I was not able to get it.
Okay.
I
PL Premium, probably.
I ended up using PL Premium. That was but I can't remember what the product he wanted me to use was. So I got the PL Premium because it was actually readily available in my market. And then we took some double-sided tape and I just put like a small little strip on the top just to kind of hold it until the glue would set up
Almost
more.
like a clamp.
Yep, or more or less. So,
Smart.
but yeah, that's all we did, and then we just put screws into the bracket
So then
through the
just
2x.
like some 2x2s, basically. You could have used a 2x4, I suppose.
Yeah, I could have used a 2x4, but yeah, I'm not sure why. No,
Made sense.
Yeah, I
Just
just
do a
ripped it in
2x2.
half. So it's basically a 2x2 now.
You're using less material in the
Yep.
end. And then you came in after that all was in place and spray foamed it before your plywood, right?
Yep.
And the idea is that the spray foam kind of locks through that bracket
Yep.
and gives that continuous insulation.
Absolutely.
I really like it. And if you think about those brackets, they're on what?
They're probably
36
32.
inch?
Yeah, 32 or 36.
Yeah, 32 to 30. It might be 34 inches.
So you've
something
got
like
a
that.
big section of wall. And were the 2x on first before you spray foamed?
Nope, I had him come in there after, like 2 days after I glued the brackets on. I had him come in and spray foam.
Oh,
So
okay.
just so he didn't get anything
Smart.
on the studs.
Yeah, so
on
you're
the
spray
wood.
foamed and then you attach
Yep.
these, and now everything's locked in place, and we
Yep.
got 2 inches of insulation back there.
Yep.
I like the detail, man. Really good. What's all the water piping I'm seeing coming into this space?
So these red tubing is the in-floor heat in the slab.
Ah,
So they basically
gotcha.
cover this west wing of the basement, and there's going to be another set. I think it's the same number of loops in the other mechanical room on the far end. But yeah, that's what the red ones are.
And so you've got that special green plywood upstairs. What is that?
So that is warm board. It's basically an 1.1 inch plywood that they pre-groove. They have different ones. They have straight ones. So they you put like 5 of them together and you can go 40 feet or whatever.
Yep.
Just line as long as everything is lined up, and then they have corners and half sheets and all that fun stuff. But they send you basically a layout. Yep,
Yeah.
a layout which tells you, use the straight panel, use the left panel, use the right panel, in order and everything. And then when we go to put the tubing and stuff down, I'm going to probably work with the HVAC guys because they're doing the hydronic for down here and they're powering it. So I'll probably help them put the tubing in upstairs. I'll help get everything clean, and there's going to be, I think in the print it said there's like 179 like custom grooves that have to be cut.
Wow.
So they send a drill router bit and templates and stuff. So I'll run around with the router and do all that stuff for
A
them.
couple of those.
Yep.
And we use that for temporary heat at all as well, or just in final?
We probably won't use that. I mean, it's middle of March right now in Mitchell.
It's going to be almost summer here. in a
Yep. So I
couple
mean, by the
weeks.
time we're taping, it'll need a little bit of heat. So we'll probably just use
It's 30 degrees. It's going to be like 40 degrees
Yeah,
next
I
week.
mean,
Yeah, well-
t-shirt weather.
Well, 2 days ago it was like 75 almost. So yeah. So which is South Dakota weather.
Weird.
But for the temporary heat, this generally the basement concrete in-floor heat will usually radiate enough to work for the upstairs.
Oh, okay.
Some of the extremes will put like a 4,000 watt, 5,000 watt, just a little
Heater.
fan heater in there and stuff. But the concrete in the basement usually does enough for the for the temporary heat.
As airtight as this building is, and as much as insulation, you're going to use a hairdryer to heat this
Yep.
place.
Yeah,
Yep.
It's not going to need a whole
It'll
lot
be
of
pretty
heat.
cool.
And I'll tell you what, I bet that floor heat, both in the basement and upstairs, is going to make this house super comfortable.
Oh yeah.
Super quiet, super efficient.
Yep.
It's going to be really nice. Now, speaking of slab, though, I'm curious. My guess is that there's probably not just concrete and then ground going on here.
Nope.
In fact, when I walked in the door, I saw real quick a little piece of some vapor barrier and maybe some insulation sticking out. What's the floor insulation assembly?
Yep. So what we have is we have our footing coming over,
Okay.
and we have probably 12 or 10 inches of crushed rock laid in there.
Okay.
So we're 2 inches short of the top of the footing.
Okay.
And then we infilled that with GPS foam.
Yep.
Halo
Subterra.
Subterra.
Halo
And
Subterra, yep.
So we laid that. So the top of that foam is flush with the top of the footing.
Okay.
And then we came through with the Stego. I think it's 15 mil
Nice.
vapor barrier.
Very
We wrapped
nice.
it up the wall. I think I came up the wall like 6 inches, and
Okay.
we used their term tape to terminate it. And then after we did that, just so we could have a separation, we put another layer of the GPS foam on. That goes from side to side. Actually, first I had to rip some 6-inch strips. to go against the foundation, and I actually tapped on those into the side of the foundation, and then I put the second layer on. But the reason I did the stego between them is because, putting this tubing down, they use that tubing stapler.
Oh, yeah.
So, they're like plastic staples. They probably go into the foam about inch and a half, whatever it is. But we did that. That way they weren't, puncturing, 5,000 holes into the stego.
Yeah.
So
Right. Smart.
Yep.
So that's all down, and then the stego goes on.
And then the stego, yeah. So
And then you've got, how thick a slab do you need on top of that?
then this is a 4-inch
4-inch
slab.
slab.
Yep.
Okay. And is there rebar in that slab, or is it mesh?
Yes. So basically, around here, we usually, when they do the in-floor heat, since there's tubing, even if we don't need it, we still have them put the rebar in just to hold the piping down.
That makes
That way
sense.
you don't,
Doesn't go buoyant.
yeah, that way it doesn't go
Right.
buoyant in like a certain spot. Because my luck would be when I'm framing my walls, my interior walls, I like to use Tapcons. You
don't wanna hit it.
Yeah, we don't want to hit it because at that point, they don't have them pressure tested.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to know, where it
hit
would be hit if, until we see a bubble of water
And
coming
now
up.
you got 4 inches of concrete that's going to be
Yep.
going to be pushing down on.
Yep.
That's going to give you a full 4 inch.
Yep.
Before
And
you hit the tubing.
Correct. And even if they pull the rebar up to the middle of the slab, or close to the middle, we should still at least have 2 inches
Yeah.
before we'd have to worry about hitting any
Right. Yeah, you
tubing.
got to chair that rebar up.
Yep.
Yeah. Smart.
So
Man, super, super well built house, Josh. I got
Thanks.
to tell you, I'm super impressed. Steve, do you mind if I steal Josh? I actually want to take a little tour of Mitchell. I hear there's a corn palace that people should
we do have a corn palace.
and I'd actually like to hear more about your background, Josh.
Okay.
If that's all right.
Yep,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Before you go, though, I'm just going to give a quick shout out. Being a Build Show contributor, excellent video. Thank you for coming out to our project.
Absolutely.
But we're going to have a dozen or
ton
two videos where we're going to talk about everything that we talked about
That's
this
right.
in specific, and I'll even break out some big red for you.
If you're not familiar with Steve Baczek, I'll give you your outro here, Steve, in case we don't see you again.
Yeah.
Steve's been on the Build Show since we broke ground in 2020. He's the OG contributor. He's our only architect, and it's the only architect I've ever seen that not only shows you the plans, but shows you the details and breaks out his big red pen with an overhead camera to really show you the details. So go check out Steve on thebuildshow.com. He's got 4 years of the videos over there. Amazing work, Steve. Appreciate you having me. I'm going to steal Josh,
You go.
and we'll see you later. Let's
Good
get
job,
going.
buddy.
Thank you. Hey guys, this is Josh with Stange Construction. Welcome to Mitchell, South Dakota. I'm very pleased to have Matt Reisinger and Steve Baczek on the job site here. We're just driving by the Corn Palace. We're best known for that here in Mitchell. It's just a pretty cool little building with some awesome artwork made out of corn and different wheat and barley and stuff like that. I didn't grow up in Mitchell, but I grew up approximately 30 miles northwest of town. On a farm, and I went to a smaller school called Plankington, South Dakota. I was always told my dad liked woodworking stuff, and like even in high school, I think when I was 14, I kind of conned my parents into getting a couple like woodworking tools, and I kind of cordoned off one of the vehicle stalls in the 2-car garage that we had on the farm, and I made a few like china cabinets. Just stuff like that. So that's kind of where it was in high school. And then I was getting out of high school after I graduated. I went to Mitchell Tech. So, right in town here, which is kind of nice. They have a nice building trades program. For my first job after that first year, I was going to go work for a cabinet maker in town. And I ended up deciding to go to work for a builder in town. And basically it was just, I love framing. I love, doing finish work. I've always been lucky enough to be able to frame it and then finish the same house. So, which is, not very common, even around here, it's not very common. Last fall, for the Build Show Live, the first year of that was my first trade show to ever go to. So yeah, it's kind of really taken me down a path, and I'm loving it. I work, normally by myself. I'll have my sons have helped me in the past, and my younger son right now, he'll be helping me, going at least as of now going into the future. But for the last 6 or 7 years that I've been completely 100% solo, there'll be times where I have a heavy window. I need to call in a friend or whatever to come in and help me get something set, or like a heavy beam that I can't quite get with the forklift or with the telehandler myself. So there are obviously pluses and minuses to that. So obviously one of the pluses is I don't have to worry about the other guy not showing up for work. I don't have to worry about the other guy, just calling in sick, hurting themselves on the weekend, anything like that. At one point on the house we're doing right now, I was just getting ready to build the interior walls after my strapping was on the ceiling. We did the 2x4 strapping on the ceiling for electrical runs. So after I got those up, I started building my interior walls, and I noticed that 2 of my windows were, for some reason, 8 3/4 off layout. I have no idea why they're 8 3/4 off layout, but that is what it is. So I always joke to myself, well, that idiot framer, he really screwed that up, didn't he? And then I have to chuckle to myself because, well, I am the idiot framer. So, there's always that, because I do like that part of it, where if there's a mistake made, I don't have anybody else to go to. It's all, right here on my shoulders. So I like that part of it. If I screw up, I take responsibility for it, I fix it, and the thing is, then I learn in the future. So when I'm laying something out next time, I'm gonna triple check it instead of double check it. So there's that. But then the negative side of it is building 8-foot exterior walls, with headers in them. If it's a 4-foot window or door opening or whatever, I'll still probably put that all together on the ground, laying it down flat and get it stood up myself. They do get a little heavy, so that's a partial negative. I can still get it myself, so that's not a complete negative. But the more negative part of it would be, so basically if you have like a 6-foot patio door or like an 8-foot window, I really can't get those stood up myself. So then I just do the king studs, and I have everything all cut and everything. I have to stand it up, and then I have to grab either ladders or scaffolding, and then I have to put it up in the opening, which it probably doesn't take a lot more time, but it does take a little bit more time, and then it's a little bit harder to do it up in the air, obviously. So then there's that, and like I said, putting in windows, certain windows you can't put in yourself just because they're too heavy. Like a certain patio door, you can't put it in yourself because it's too heavy. Just stuff like that. Bigger beams, if you can't reach them with the telehandler, you can't get them by yourself, all that stuff. So, but yeah, basically positives and negatives, just like everything. Just like there's going to be positives and negatives if I had 6 employees. So bigger projects are easier to do, but then you get a little bit smaller project. Do you really need 6 or 7 guys there? Not necessarily. So yeah, it all works out one way or another. So just a different story.
Josh, man, super impressive.
Thank you
for having me out to beautiful, sunny, and gorgeous weather here in Mitchell, South Dakota.
Yep.
Now, it's not always like this, though, is it?
No.
You actually get some serious heat and humidity, too, occasionally, don't you?
Yep, we get, there's probably about a week, maybe 2 per year that we get 100 plus.
Yeah.
And usually we'll probably get some, like a couple days that are over 110, and if not 120.
And what was your coldest day this past winter?
So this past winter was probably about 3 weeks ago is all. And I want to say I stayed home that day. I did not come out to work, and I was watching my weather app, and at 8 a.m. it was -23. So
that's not even the wind chill.
That's not even the wind chill. That was the air temperature.
-23.
Yep, -23.
So with the wind chill, if it was blowing like this, it might have been
-50. Probably more.
50.
Yeah.
That is incredible. And as a one-man show, you were out here framing in some of those conditions, weren't you?
Yep.
What was the coldest day you were framing on?
So I probably, actual framing, it was probably about 5 degrees or so.
Yeah.
Inside, it was probably maybe just below 0, but yeah, it wasn't very many of those.
Man, that's crazy. Josh, super proud of you and the work that you've done here. For you to have built such a seriously high-performance house in frankly, a pretty small town.
Yep.
What's the population of Mitchell? 15,000
Yeah, 15,000, 15,500.
What I like about it is you're going to start a movement in the Dakotas and these surrounding states even. People are going to see this video. They're going to see your work. They're going to follow you on Instagram. By the way, go check out his Instagram feed, Stange Construction. They're going to be motivated seeing what you're doing. You think about this day today. It's 30 degrees, but it's what, +3 on wind chill. It makes a lot of sense to build a really airtight, a really well-built house. And Josh for years was building great houses. He was building with integrity. but the knowledge that he gained from the build show, from working with Steve, he's going to take that to all his future projects. And I suspect I'm going to come back to this part of the world in 10 years, and we're going to see multiple builders, multiple locations, multiple homeowners who are going to be talking about their blower door scores. They're going to be bragging about it at the steakhouse on the corner. Josh, super impressive, man. I really appreciate you having me out to Mitchell, South Dakota. Catch up with the rest of the episodes on this Building Across America series. Otherwise, we'll see you next time on The Build Show.